Welcome, 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 everybody. What's happening? What's a good word? Yes, yes, yes. So excited for today's masterclass. If you are here today, it means that you're serious about your growth and your business, and especially in these times of uncertainty. And today, it's exactly what we're having a conversation about, right? Because the truth is, guys, the market is not going to decide your outcome, right? You are. You're going to decide your outcome. And we're in a time right now. I'm telling you, this is what I'm seeing across the nation and having conversations with agents is agents are either shrinking back or they're stepping up. It's one of the two. You're either shrinking or you're stepping up. And the people that are stepping up are the ones that understand how to control what they can control. Their mindset, their faith, their actions, their strategy, the key components that it takes to be a top performer in real estate. And that's why today's class is so special, guys. That's why it matters. Because we're not just talking about setting goals so that you feel good, because nobody cares about your feelings. We're here to talk about goal execution at the highest level, knowing where you're good, where you can plan, how to reverse engineer maybe some of your targets, no matter where you're at in your business, whether you're a brand new agent or an icon agent at one of these phenomenal companies, right? And today, there's no better leader than to help us navigate this conversation than the one and only Mr. Joshua Smith. You see, Joshua wasn't just a top producer. He's one of the most respected high-performance coaches in real estate. He's the founder of GSD Mode, short for Get Shit Done Mode. I love it. I love saying that just because I'm an old Marine. So I love being able to like let it out and let it rip. So it's good stuff. It got me all fired up this morning when I said it. But it's exactly how this gentleman operates, right? He's built real estate teams, closed over $1 billion in volume, watching them sell more than 500 homes personally in one of the most competitive markets in the country, and that's out of Phoenix, Arizona. But more than that, he's coached, he's trained, he's mentored over 10,000 real estate professionals worldwide, teaching them how to find success in systematizing their business, leading themselves, and winning regardless of market conditions. So Josh was not about the fluff, guys. I just had a conversation with him backdoor. He's going to bring the heat. So get ready to write, get ready to get tuned in, be fully dedicated to this. And even though we can't see your faces, I promise you, we can feel your energy. We can feel your spirit, whether you want to go next level with it or not. So without further ado, I want to bring up Mr. GSD Mode himself, Joshua Smith. Come on up, my brother.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here with all of you guys, and I appreciate the kind words there, Joseph.
Absolutely, my brother. It's an honor. It's a pleasure to have you in here. Before we actually fire up, I also want to bring the amazing leader that connected us. This woman, her business acumen and everything that she's done in a short amount of time here with us at EXP really stands for itself. She's recently taken over as our branch manager out of our Redlands office in California, luxury agent within EXP's luxury division, and just a phenomenal leader that I have a tremendous respect for. So without further ado, let me bring up Shahnaz Kadafer as well. Come on up, Shahnaz. There we go. What's good?
Good morning, everyone.
All right.
I'm excited.
Yes, this is going to be a great call, guys. And for those of you that are tuning in, here's where the excitement level goes next level too, is this isn't just being streamed on this platform. This is going live on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So we're going to have a national audience that are plugging in, really excited for it. So let's get into it. Joshua, before I give you the floor, my brother, I know today we're talking about uncertain markets, right? And so what would you say, just to set the stage for this, what would you say is a first step to create some clarity for agents and staying in control of our business?
Yeah, first thing, and this is something that you said when you kicked off the call, in the very beginning intro, is that, there's a philosophy that I've learned to operate by and abide by that has really been probably the most important mental philosophies that's allowed my business to grow for 20 years straight, regardless whether it's been the biggest, I've experienced the biggest two booms in recorded history. I've been through the biggest real estate market crash in recorded history, the great financial crisis. And my business was able to grow every single year, regardless of the marketplace. And we'll unpack that and those reasons. It's not because I'm somebody special, but the mental philosophy that has served me extremely well that I think everybody should abide by and operate by is there's no such thing as a good market or a bad market. The market's always good for somebody. It's our job as real estate professionals to identify whom the market is good for, pivot, shift, and adapt accordingly. As Joseph said, your growth, your business is in your own hands. You can never allow yourself to be a victim and be like, oh, my business is down because of the market. Because then we're giving up our power, we're giving up our control. The market's the market. The market's going to do what the market's going to do. There's always transactions closing. I can promise you this. There's always somebody in your MLS kicking freaking ass, regardless of what's going on in the marketplace. So it's just up to you to make that decision. Okay, am I going to commit to do what I got to do to go out there and kick ass? Or am I going to, be a victim and allow the market to do what it's going to, whatever, when we give up that power, give up that control. So again, it's never, there's no such thing. Just get this whole, it's a good market, bad market out of your head. The market is always good for somebody. The best of the best in this industry identify whom the market is good for, pivot, shift, adapt their focus, their marketing, their prospecting, their energy, their efforts to whom the market is good for. And if you learn to do that, and we'll unpack that and talk about how to do that today, your business will always continue to grow.
So good, brother. So good. Yeah, we're excited. I'm ready to take some diligent notes here. We'll give you the floor, sir, and then we'll tap in with some questions here as they filter in through the chat. For those of you that are live, feel free to put your questions in there, and then we'll attack them in order as we get through the course of this call.
Yeah. So the first thing is awareness. And when I say this, I'm glad that we opened up with what we did, with what Joseph said, what I just said in that. Look, I don't believe in operating for fear porn. So I'm not about to say what I'm going to say to create fear, to create doubt. Like I said, there's absolutely no excuse or reason as to why your business shouldn't be growing, shouldn't be expanding, why you shouldn't be crushing your goals, and why you shouldn't be kicking ass, unless you don't want to, unless you're not committed to doing so. If you're committed to doing so, your business should be able to grow and expand regardless. But it's really important to have awareness. So I'm not bringing this up to fear anybody. But look, if somebody's coming at me to punch me in the face, I want to know so I can just sidestep and get out of the way. But we've got to deal in realities and understand what we're amongst and what we're against. So if we look at what's going on right now, where the market is right now, because I see so many people having so many conversations of, I just can't wait for things to get back to normal. I can't wait for, this to pass. Like they're just kind of sitting on the sidelines, hoping and praying that what we're seeing, what we're experiencing is going to pass. I can tell you this right now. Well, first off, I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm very, very confident in the fact that things are going to get much, much worse, much, much uglier before they get better. Now, why do I say this? Okay, number one, we're in the most unaffordable time to be alive as a U.S. citizen. At no point since the inception of the United States, 1776, has it been more expensive to be alive and operate life than it is today. So I talked to so many agents that are like, oh man, as soon as interest rates come down, people, there's just going to be this flood of new clients coming in the marketplace. And look, maybe I don't have a crystal ball. Now I'll talk to you about here in a minute. Well, I'm not confident that we're going to really see, cost of capital come down, interest rates come down. But even if that were to happen, would we see a slight uptick? Probably, but I'm not confident that all of a sudden the market's just going to go on fire again, because you remove real estate from it. Like, dude, fast food costs $50 for a couple to go, right? Like I got 3 kids and a wife. Like if I take my whole family to Arby's, it's like $80. Like everything in life has gotten so insanely expensive. If we remove real estate from it, again, it's just a most unaffordable time to be alive in U.S. history. So if you look at, so people will ask me, is this going to be as bad as the great, the GFC 2008 to 2012? Is this going to be as bad as the Great Depression? I'm like, dude, I don't know. I have no way of knowing that. Look, it could be worse, could be as bad, could not be as bad. I don't know. But what I can tell you is the consumer today is in a way worse off position than they were leading into the great financial crisis, than they were leading into the Great Depression. We've never seen the consumer in this worse off of a position. And a good chart that I check every single month that I recommend that you guys go check out. So the St. Louis branch of the Federal Reserve is in charge of tracking what's going on with the consumer. So if you go into your Google taskbar, or your Google search bar and type in St. Louis Federal Reserve consumer debt to savings chart, it will blow your damn mind. At no point in recorded history have we ever seen a gap this wide of consumer debt to savings. No point have we seen it this wide. At no point have we seen it accelerating at the speed it's accelerating at. So the consumer is already just crushed, right? Then from there, we're just coming out of the biggest everything. Well, we're still kind of amongst, in different asset classes, but the biggest everything bubble of all time, and at least, recorded history. So at least, we have pretty good recorded history for several thousand years now. So the biggest everything bubble in all time, right? We're watching just the removal of the middle class. I had a mentor of mine years and years and years ago tell me, Josh, in our lifetime, we're going to see just the complete removal of the middle class. The middle class was, really built up during the Industrial Revolution. Now we're in the de-industrial revolution, we're in the tech revolution, the information revolution, the AI revolution. So in our lifetimes, we're going to see the middle class just be wiped out, where there's going to be the haves and have-nots. And I got what he was saying. He's much smarter than me. By the time this dude was 40, like he'd create an exit from over $1 billion worth of business sales. So, he's light years ahead of me from intelligence and business acumen. But now we're seeing that before our eyes. Right. We're seeing just the gap of the haves and have-nots. We're seeing the middle class get wiped out. And I don't know if we'll ever see a strong middle class again for the rest of our career, rest of our lifetime. Then on top of that, we are now seeing a shrinking demography for the first time in our lifetimes, seeing shrinking demography to the point where, okay, if you look at, and where this is coming into play is just understanding cost of capital and how cost of capital works. So when you have every generation that is larger than the previous generation, right? Then you have more people entering the workforce, so increased productivity, and then you have more people consuming, so you have increased consumption. So if we look at, historically, it's been like a pyramid, right? Like you got more younger people and then it would go up, right? So you have more, 0 to 5-year-olds than you do 80-year-olds. Well, now we have globally this inverted pyramid where human beings now, we qualify for the endangered species list. So if you even look at the United States, which we have probably like one of the most healthy demographies in any of the industrialized countries out there, we are at 1.87 children per couple, where you need 2.2 for just replacement rate. So everywhere across the globe, like 100 years from now, you'll probably see half the population on the globe than we see right now, unless something dramatically changes and things turn around, which this is a slow moving thing, right? So this is why, okay, if you just study history, when you have shrinking demographies, it always leads to rise in cost of capital. So for the previous, several hundred years, we had a very, a climate that could allow for low, cheap, free cost of capital, meaning interest rates. But now that we're flipping that dynamic, right, that leads into, an era where we're going to have higher cost of capital. So when people are talking about, interest rates, and then if we look at, mortgage rates, why did mortgage rates get so low? Why do we see them the lowest that we've ever seen in recorded history during the lockdowns, during all of that, right? Is because the Federal Reserve felt the need to come in and not just become, the primary buyer, but really become the only buyer of mortgage-backed securities, to the magnitude of them buying $90 billion a month of mortgage-backed securities. So I get so many people also, they're like, oh, there's pressure on Jerome Powell. He's going to be replaced soon. They're going to get a new, Fed Reserve where they have influence over them, which they're not supposed to anyway, but let's just say they do, and they hire somebody that is willing to go, reduce the rate for the overnight rates. That has very little, if nothing, to do with the mortgage rates, right? Mortgage rates are based on mortgage-backed security demand. And when you look at smart money that are buying these MBSs, they're not dumb. They see what's going on with the consumer. So again, I'm not convinced that, my best guess is we're going to see interest rates pretty much, bouncing between 6 and 8% for a long time to come, and maybe even higher than that. The other thing that I want you guys to understand is that real estate cycles are slow. If you look at the previous 100 years, we have pretty accurate data of real estate cycles for about the last 100 years. So the average real estate cycle is about a 10-year period of time, meaning from peak to bottom to recovery. Now, if we look at the last real estate cycle, down cycle, the great financial crisis, we peaked in 2005, bottomed out in 2012. Then it took till 2019 to come back to 2005 prices, at least in most markets. Right? So that was a 14-year cycle. So I want you to understand that as it took, like the market started softening, started breaking, started seeing signs of like what we're seeing now in like 2006, 2007. Now it took till 2008, so things started falling off of a cliff, but then it took 4 years, till 2012 to bottom out. Then it took from 2012 all the way to 2019 to recover. So, so many people, assume that real estate is like the stock market where it just goes up and down, fluctuates very quick. Real estate's a very, very slow moving vehicle. So the reason why I share all of this is, look, this is going to be the new normal for some time to come. So instead of just burying your head in the sand, not being naive to what we're amongst, right, but then thinking that this is like, oh, things are going to bounce back in a year or two, it's probably not the case. And like I said, I'm not going to pretend that I have a crystal ball, because I don't, but I'm a big believer. And one of the things that's allowed me to hedge my business and grow my business, regardless of what's going on with the market, is I hope for the best and plan for the worst. So I'm planning on this correction, whatever you want to call this, to be worse than the Great Financial Crisis and worse than the Great Depression. I'm not saying it's going to be, but if I plan for worst case scenario and it doesn't happen, okay, hopefully I'm good to go. If I plan correctly and it does happen, well, then I'm still good to go. So history favors he or she that's most prepared, right? So we got to understand what we're amongst, and this is why you have about 50% of people that used to be able to buy and sell in the real estate market that no longer are willing or able to. So we got transaction volume. If you look at transaction volume, yeah, it's the lowest that we've seen since 1995. But one important thing to understand there is in 1995, we had 78 million lesser Americans. And we had about a third of the amount of realtors. Look, I got buddies that have been in this industry for 50 plus years at a very high level, high performing, real estate agents, brokerage owners, team leaders. And they've even told me, hey, we've never seen anything like this in our entire careers. We're like in new territory. So we got to understand that. We got to wake up to that. Now, again, I'm not saying this to freak anybody out or scare anybody. I just want to have awareness. I'm going to make sure that you guys have awareness. So then that way you can make smart strategic plans, smart strategic moves inside your real estate business. Okay, so then from there, why am I seeing there's two primary reasons, and I'll walk you through what to do. So there's two primary reasons as to why I'm seeing real estate agents just get wiped apart right now. And as Joseph said in the very beginning, it's kind of like two camps. And now we're not just seeing this in real estate. We're seeing this in every aspect of life, the haves and the have-nots. There's like no more middle ground, right? It's just, again, the middle is getting wiped out. It's the haves and have-nots, whether it be in the real estate business or any aspect of life right now. So I'm either seeing people get ripped apart and have the hardest, challenging, years of their entire career, or I'm seeing those have the best years of their career. It's like one or the other. And again, it's your choice to pick and choose what side of the equation that you want to be on. For me, I'm committed to doing whatever it takes to be on the have side, not the have not side. I've been broke. I've been, had to live in my car before. I've been in that. I've operated that life, and that life, I'd rather work my ass off and not experience those things, because that life is worse than having to put in the work and the sacrifice to not have to stress about how am I going to pay my mortgage payment this month. All right, so the two biggest reasons as to why I'm seeing people struggle right now is, number one, they're still just winging it. Look, you got to understand that 2012 till 2022. Now, I understand that most probably on this call haven't been in this industry pre-2012, right? So, but 2012 through 2022, longest bull market in recorded history, longest real estate expansion in recorded history, longest economic expansion in recorded history. That was easy street, right? You could kind of show up, kind of be consistent, kind of work hard. You could just wing it and go out there and make multiple six figures. Those days are over. It's really important to understand that in business, just like in life, there's times of peace, there's times of war. That was a decade of peace. Now we're in wartime, right? So you got to operate differently during times of war than during times of peace. So number one, you can't wing it, which I'll go into, what to do there instead of winging it. And how do I know if somebody's winging it? The top two signs I know somebody's winging it is like, if you're like, okay, I'm going to work hard today. I show up to the office. I'm going to work hard today. And then you're like, you have to ask yourself, what am I going to do? Right? Like, you need to have a plan with precision where, every single day, every single week, what you must do with precision to go out there and win. Number two, if you're not tracking your data, if you're not tracking your numbers, right? It's an impossibility, create predictability, possibility to identify areas of improvement. If you're not tracking your numbers, I know you're not committed and you're just winging it. I don't mean to be harsh. I'm saying this from a place of love because I truly care about every one of you and I want to see you guys succeed. Number two is they're still playing defense. Again, 2012 to 2022, you could just wait for things to come to you. You could play defense, just be passive, wait for things to come to you, go out there, make multiple six figures and things were good. You can no longer get away with that. So the two things that you really need to pivot to right now. Number one is he or she that's the best operator wins. So you got to treat your business like a business, no longer winging it. What do I mean by treating your business as a business? Okay, number one, you got to have extreme clarity on what you want, why you want it, why it's important to you. What you want is the goal. Why you want it, why it's important to you is the reason and the purpose that goal must become a reality. Because look, you're going to have to push through hell and back. You're going to have to show up. If you look at success is only reserved for those that are truly committed. What is the definition of commitment? It's showing up and doing the necessary actions that we must do regardless of our emotional state. Like, dude, more than half the time when I wake up in the morning, I don't feel like doing shit. I don't want to do any of this stuff, but I show up regardless, right? Whether I'm happy, whether I'm depressed, whether I'm sad, whether I'm, feeling, fulfilled and joyful, like what, it doesn't matter. I don't listen to my emotions. I control my emotions. They don't control me. I'm going to show up and do the work regardless whether I want to or not. But when we have that extreme clarity on what you want, why you want it, why it's important to you, it allows you to push through the bullshit, allows you to push through those hard times. Right. So that's number one. Number two, that also then allows us to identify the best strategic plan to get us from where we're at to where we want to go. When you have clarity on where you want to go, why you want it, why it's important to you, where you're at right now. It makes it much easier to identify the best proven plan to get you from where you're at to where you want to go. And the key word there is proven. Like, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I'm going to go to, people like Shahnaz and Joseph that have already proven how to go out there and create success. Like, why would I reinvent the wheel? It's already hard enough just to show up each and every day and do the work. Like trying to figure all this out on my own. I'm setting myself up for immediate failure. So for me, I get told all the time, oh, Josh, like you're so good with marketing and branding. Like, how'd you figure all this stuff out? I'm like, dude, I'm just a really good pirate. Like I find people that have created the success I want to go out there and create, identify, reverse engineer exactly what they're doing. And it's R&D, rip off and duplicate. I'm just a really good pirate. I'm really good at stealing what other people are doing to go out there and create success, of course, with their permission and, whatever, not that you need people's permission. You can go reverse engineer what anybody's doing and go out there and emulate it. So I'm going to emulate that success. So I have the right proven plan with precision. And with precision, again, that means that every single day what you must show up and do to go out there and win. Like I know Shahnaz knows exactly, okay, how many Facebook, posts that she needs to do, what she needs. Like, so every day it's like, okay, here's the activities I got to do. Here's how many leads I need to generate. Here's how many follow-up calls I got to do, how many conversations I got to do. And if I do these every single day, boom, I'm hitting my KPIs, I'm hitting my numbers, I'm winning. Then from there, you got to then adopt and master the proper skill sets that you must proper to execute on your strategies at the highest level. And there's going to be different skill. Like, so if I'm cold calling, okay, I got to master the art of pre-framing. I got to master tonality. I got to master how to identify the true root, concerns, AKA objections, and lead that process. Okay. If I'm doing YouTube, okay, I got to master, creating the right type of content. I make sure I'm creating the right content for the right people and with the right frequency. I got to master the right video framework, the right call to actions. There's different skill sets based on what the activities that you're doing that you need to go out there and master. It all works. We're blessed to be in an industry where everything works, nothing doesn't. There's 1,000 ways to go out there and grow your business, but each one can take a different skill set, right? So then we adopt the right skill set. Then from there, we make sure we're tracking every element of our business. So I'm going to track number of leads, number of reach outs, number of conversation, number of appointment set, number of clients, number of closings. So then I know how much exact energy and effort that it takes. So I can create that, I can replicate, duplicate my business. I can see areas of opportunity for areas of improvement. Then from there, we got to make sure that we, dial in the right processes and the right systems. So that's what I mean by treating your business as a business. The secondary thing is switching from, I'm almost done here, and then we'll open it up to wherever Joseph and Shahnaz and any questions that you guys have. The secondary thing is switching from defense to what I call strategic offense. So a strategic offense has two words, right? So there's two different components to this. So by strategic, we are now in a market where, again, when you have half the people that used to be willing and able to buy and sell that are no longer willing and able to buy and sell. So now we pivoted from a market of people that want to the market of needs. So you need to identify who has the highest probability of needing your services in this given market. Like I said earlier, there's no such thing as a good market or a bad market. It's up to us as real estate professionals to identify whom the market is good for. So right now, you need to be very laser focused, very strategic with identifying, okay, who needs your services at the highest level, or who has the highest probability of needing your services. So we're identifying those that need to sell and buy, not those that want to buy and sell. Now, I get so many that reach out to me like, Josh, I'm doing so much lead gen, doing so much lead follow-up, but nobody's motivated. I'm like, okay, you're targeting the wrong people. So as an example, let's just say, so I'm talking with a dude, Southern California, the other day, and he's like, oh, I've been doing direct mail for years. It was providing a great ROI, but now I'm just kind of trading money. Yeah, right? Like I'm not losing money, but I'm just breaking even. I'm not making any money. And he obviously needs to make money. So then I asked him, I said, okay, well, who's selling your market? Like, why are people selling? He goes, well, they're selling for three reasons. This is a gentleman in like San Diego. And he goes, they're selling for three, or some area in Southern California. But he's like, there's three primary reasons. They're either relocating out of state, they're selling to downsize to go move into assisted living or family, or divorce. I'm like, okay, you just answered your question there. Those are the three, places to go out there and target. So, for example, with this, if I'm going after sellers, expires and FSBOs have always been great. We don't know exactly what their pain point is, why they're raising their hand, but we know that they've raised their hand. But then from there, okay, about 3 years ago, I was just looking at what I'm walking you guys through, assessing, okay, who's the market good for? Okay, most unaffordable time to be alive as a U.S. citizen. Number one reason for divorce is financial hardship. So I'm okay, I think that divorces probably would be a good target. So I see in my area, divorces are on the rise. We start targeting divorces for the first time in my 18-year career. I never target divorces as a niche, but you can't get stuck in your old ways. You got to be willing to adapt new niches and go out, right? Like we got to always be changing, always be adapting. And that's my number two best listing source is going after divorces. So we got, again, thinking of who has the highest probability of needing your services. So, okay, somebody that's going through a divorce, probably a high probability that they need to sell to split that asset as they're going through this life change. Okay, absentee owners, right? People, probates, people that 30 plus days late on their mortgage. Again, one of the most important things that you guys can ever understand when it comes to sales is all about pain and pleasure. People are experiencing pain with their current situation. They want out of that pain and they want to get to pleasure. But here's how human behavior works is if the pain of the current situation does not outweigh the pain of the pleasure, they won't take the move, right? So the pain of the status quo must outweigh the pain of the move for them to take that move. So maybe they're experiencing pain with their current living situation, but maybe the pain of buying something new at today's prices and today's interest rates is more painful. So they'll just tolerate the pain that they're experiencing. We need to target people that are experiencing enough pain, more pain with their current living situation than the pain of the move. And that's how you create urgency. Yeah, right? So strategic, again, identifying those that have the highest probability of needing your services. And then when I say playing offense, okay, in this market, I'm not waiting for crap to come to me. I want to have my fate in my own hands. I'm doing activities. I'm doing things where I'm in control of my own fate. So like an example with this, when I talk about going after divorces, number one question I get is, well, how do you get them? Do you go meet with the divorce attorneys? Like, look, you can do that. And I think that's not a bad, kind of side hustle secondary, but that's not going to be my primary reliant method, right? I'm going to get their data. I'm going to reach out to them directly, work in my fates in my own hands. I know if I do 500 dials, 50 conversations, I'm going to take one listing with them. Yeah, right. So I want to play offense where it's okay. I'm in full control. I can go after it. I'm not relying on anybody else or anything else to grow and expand my business. So we got to go out there and pivot into strategic offense. So I know I've been shotgunning for 15, 20 minutes. So I'm going to shut up and just see if you guys have any questions or where you want to take this.
Dude, that was so good, Joshua. I appreciate you dropping all that knowledge on us. I love your analogy, brother, about like war and peace, right? And so, again, having been a military veteran for 22 plus years, like one thing that I notice about war is like conflict, right? Like conflict. And so I would love to have your like insight as how that relates to agents. Like, are agents just generally passive? And so going on the offense for them is just not normal, right? And how can they combat that? Like how can we get more assertive in our business, more offensive instead of being reactive and just leaning or like being a spectator in our own life?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Like meaning that, look, I've been having conversations with people that have been doing this 30 years and they're just getting crushed right now. And I'll say to them, I'm like, dude, you made it through the dot-com bubble. You made it through 9/11. You made it through the great financial crisis. Why are you not adapting now? And I think that 10-year period of time was such a long period of time for people to get comfortable and get set in their own ways. So that's been hard for a lot of people. But you just got to understand hey, I can stay complacent, but if you're going to stay there and stay complacent, like you are going to get your ass ran over. So it comes down to that decision. It comes down, again, getting clarity on what you want, why you want it, why it's important to you, and just dealing in realities. Like you have two choices. You can either keep struggling, become a statistic of the drop out of this industry. And yeah, you can go make up some bullshit story to tell your friends, family that will buy into it. But deep down when you're looking in the mirror that you quit, you had to leave this business because you didn't give it your all. Yeah, right. So if you want to, deal with that and deal with that conversation, deal with that regret, okay, that's your own personal choice. So I've got a very addictive personality. I used to be massively addicted to food, became 300 pounds and morbidly obese, had to lose over 100 pounds, keep it off for over a decade. I was a raging alcoholic. I had to, overcome that. And, I've been sober now for 5 years. I was addicted to other substances like Adderall, had to break that addiction. And when I was studying addiction and how to have success with overcoming addiction, the number one commonality I found that anybody that had success with overcoming addiction, but then having success with the long term is, again, they had a reason and a purpose for why they needed to quit. So I think people need to spend time. Most people spend more time today designing their grocery list or designing Christmas vacation, or, Christmas or a vacation than they ever do designing their life plan. So I think people need to spend more time on really getting clarity on, because look, dude, I call it the ultimate scoreboard. We're all going to blink of an eye. We're all 84 years old, sitting on our deathbed. There's no time to go back and change anything. We're going to roll back the tapes and we're going to ask ourselves, what do you do this one gift called life? Do we piss it away or we do something epic with it? And the vast majority, unfortunately, 99% leave this planet with massive shoulda, woulda, coulda, regretless. Now I know that because I used to work on a hospice floor as a nurse's aide for 2 years, having in-depth conversations with patients for 2 years straight on their deathbed. And I never had one of them ever come to me like, oh, Josh, life is amazing. Life is epic. I'm ready for the next journey, whatever that was. None of them. I never had one person that ever shared that with me. Everybody had this long, massive laundry list of regrets. And so at that point, going through that experience, I committed to myself of like, okay, dude, like I'm going to come up with my ultimate scoreboard every single year. I'm going to assess, I'm going to visualize that I'm in that position. I'm going to play back the tapes because I just want to minimize any regrets that I would have, because life is finite, time is finite, so that's number one, and then two, people have a lot of resistance to change. But my thing that would change is like, dude, change is the one thing that's always taken place, always is taking place, always will take place. So I have resistance to it. And then sometimes I'll get people that are like, oh, Josh, I'm not an addict like you. Everybody's an addict. The most dangerous addiction and the worst addiction that most people have today is their addiction to comfort. They get, I think life has just been so damn good for so long. People feel so entitled that life should be a certain way. Life should be easy. Or I deserve to be happy. No, you don't. Like, dude, like your head lift off the pillow. It's up to you to go out there and create what you want to create. Like nobody owes you a damn thing. It's up to you to go out there and create it, so yeah, I get it. It takes work, but it is a choice and you just got to pick and choose. You can't be naive in thinking that, okay, if I continue, we all know the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, expect different result. You want a different result, you got to take different actions. You got to operate in a different way. You got to adopt a different mindset, different attitude. You got to take different actions and just the name of the game.
So good, brother. So good. Shahnaz, my friend.
Amazing. I have no words. Like I've been coaching with Josh for a year, and I cannot even tell you, this is what I really needed. Last year, it was kind of like the awakening for me. I was like, okay, this is not where I want to be. Like I changed my brokerage. I joined EXP Luxury, and I was like, I need a strong coach. And that's when I was like, okay, I was actually scared of Josh. But then I was like, you know what? It is what it is. Like he is very like straightforward. And that's what I love about it, because a lot of time, instead of like really finding out what we are doing wrong, we kind of like hide ourselves instead of listening. Okay, this is what I'm doing wrong. Like I gotta pick up my own shit and just move forward. Like this is life. So that was like my biggest thing. And Josh is so amazing, like our weekly calls too, when we have questions, he's very like straight, like this is what you guys have to do. And it's just amazing. How do you come up with these answer like so fast? Like whenever we have like any obstacle, like when we are like stuck, you are so fast to answer it.
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, I'm a yes. Do I teach? Do I mentor? Do I coach? Yes, but I'm a doer first. So I've been in the industry 20 years, gotten at 23. Jumped in, hit it hard, 80 hours a week, doing 7 open houses every single week. Sold 48 homes my first year. Led me to hire my first assistant. Then I did 103 my second. Then I started hiring agents and doing 300. Just over 300 the third. And so I've personally sold over 7,000 homes. And then with, coaching and mentoring, 5,000 plus real estate professionals, like you learn a lot during that path. And I think part of it is like, if you ever do the wealth dynamics test or even like the DISC, okay, I'm a 99D and a 98C, which is a very odd DISC. But then like with wealth dynamics, I'm classified as a mechanic. So, I'm a hardcore introvert. I'm big on reflection, dissecting, building models, because like, look, for me, the only way I can replicate success is I have to break it down into a framework and then into a process. It's just kind of how my mind works. So I think that helps me because I've had to think so deeply through my business. And then, when you're building a team, a lot of people that don't have teams don't understand this, but the vast majority that join teams are brand new agents. Because if you got an agent out there that's doing 20 million a year gross volume sales, kicking ass, like they're not going to join a team and give up 50% of their commission. And, so it's typically, brand new agents or struggling agents. So I had to get really good of reverse engineering this, taking this complex business, and how can I get a brand new agent to plug in and be making 20 grand a month after splits within 6 months, but yeah, it takes a lot of reflection. And look, man, I've had to overcome. I'll be the first to admit, like when people will look at my success trajectory on a piece of paper, zoom out and like, oh, Josh, you've created all this success. No, I mean, I know it looks that way on paper. Like I remember this was like, I don't know, year 3 or 4 in the business. I'm introduced to go on stage, speak at this event. Like, oh yeah, Joshua Smith did, 1.4 million in gross commissions last year. but I felt like such a charlatan going on that stage. I remember in my mind when they're doing that introduction, I'm like, yeah, but what they don't know is I'm $100,000 in business credit card debt. Like I'm broke as shit. I'm more broke building this team than I was, right? So like I have been kicked in the teeth and I have struggled more than I've succeeded in this industry, and I'm one of those guys that it's like, okay, you were told to not touch the hot stove, but then we got to touch it. You just got to try it. You got to touch it. But I'm the guy where it's not, I just don't touch it once and learn my lesson. Like I got to touch that thing 3 or 4 times. So dude, I have made it. I have lost it. I have made it. I have lost it. I mean, more times than I like to admit and to count. And so but it's like when I get, people talk about the awards and accolades, I don't want to make this dismiss these and not sound like I'm not kind of proud of them or whatever, but I'm really not. What I'm really proud of is all the adversity that I've had to overcome. All the pain that I've had. I mean, overcoming depression, overcoming obesity, overcoming alcoholism, overcoming, it's very difficult when you're, making 7 figures a year, you lose everything. You're in multiple $100,000 of credit card debt, it's $700,000 of mortgage debt, $2,200 of car leases, not knowing how I'm having to hawk a Rolex that my wife just bought me for a birthday present, like figuring all that crap out and how to get myself, right. But what I'm most proud of is not giving up, pushing through that pain. And it was pain, and it's pain. I still go through pain. We all go through pain, and this is where I was kind of going earlier of, people I think have a delusional outlook on life, right? Like life is pain, right? Now, but the pain is a blessing, like I look at pain as God's, and some people may not be religious, but I am, but you can look at a God, you can look at a universe, you can look at whatever, but I believe that pain is God's signal to wake me the hell up and to provide the learning lesson that I must be provided so I can metamorphosize and expand into the next better version of myself to make my goals a reality and become the man that, God put me on this planet to go out there and be. So I think it's a long-winded answer of me, saying, of answering your question there, but I would say that, and there's honestly, and you go on those calls or sometimes where I'm like, hey guys, like, I don't actually know. You had a call on yesterday's call, a gentleman asked me, he's doing something I've never done before. So I'm like, hey, look, I'm going to answer your question totally from a place of theory, so I'm just going to, give my best guess on this, right. But I've never actually done that. So I never want to bullshit people either and be like, oh, I know exactly what to do in that scenario, and the other thing too, is I'm always like, I am probably the biggest student I've ever met. Like, dude, I'm always learning. Hours every day of just, if I'm not working and I work a lot, or if I'm not spending time with my wife or my kids or working out, like my face is stuffed in a book, right? Like right before we jumped on here, I'm listening to podcasts about, from other economists about the market, the economy. Like I'm a lifelong student. I never allow myself to become arrogant to the point where like, oh, I know this. I know it all. No, I understand. Like if you look at all the knowledge in the universe, like, dude, I don't even know a tiny little speck. Like I don't know shit. Right. I don't know crap about. I know a little bit about a little bit, but I have so much more to learn, so much more to grow.
Yeah, that is so good, brother. So good. I love your point about like hitting these walls, because clearly, in your experience, 20 plus years, brother, you've hit walls, and then you've either attacked them or found a way around them, up and over, brick by brick, however that worked out for you. Many of us, I fit in that, like me personally, bro, I fit in that post 20, like I joined real estate in 2018, different background, but I've never had a crappy market, and so one thing that I'm noticing with agents being in the space of like, speaking life into them and leadership and stuff like that, is that there's a lot of people that are hitting walls, right? Sometimes self-induced as well. However, what is a good exercise, or what is a first exercise or conversation that you have? And you may have answered this already when you were talking about purpose. But what's a first exercise that you have with agents that are like, I just hit a wall, I used to crush it, or I'm not hitting my potential? What's the first step for them, bro?
Yeah, so the first thing is I want to identify, what their goals are, so we can identify, here's where you're at, here's where you want to go, right? And then we start dissecting, okay, what are you doing? Because dude, like a lot of times I find that people are like 80% there. They're just missing that 20%. It's not always a complete 180. It's not always a complete overhaul. Like I'm having a conversation with a dude the other day who had he's brand new, just started hitting for sell by owner, set like 8 for sell by owner appointments in his first 30 days. but he only had like 2 show up. So I'm like, okay, dude, like your dial to conversation rate was good. His conversation to appointment set rate was like 2.7%. So I'm like, that's really good for, being only at this 30 days, but his appointment, set to conduction rate was way up. So I'm like, okay, like all we gotta do is hone in this. And there's just 4 things that we got to do to hone this, but we can turn this around immediately. So sometimes, this is where we got to dissect it. Cause sometimes it's like every single morning, I make 8 eggs and then 260 grams of sweet potato. And like, if I just make that alone, it's bland. But if I add the right amount of salt, like, oh my God, it's money in my mouth, dude. Like it tastes so damn good. So sometimes they're just missing that salt. They're just missing that ingredient, right? They're 80-90% of the way they're just missing, some components. Sometimes, right. It's a full overhaul, right. They're just targeting the wrong people, right. And this is where, again, like we can never allow ourselves to get complacent. What worked yesterday may not work today, may not work tomorrow. Like I was saying earlier, my first 18 years of my career, I never went after divorces. That was never a niche for me. Now it's our second best listing source. We're crushing and murdering it with going after divorce listings. So you always got to be willing and open-minded to add new, to always understand that. Like, I don't care if you've had 20 years of experience. I've talked to so many people that have had 20, 30, 40 years of experience that are getting crushed right now. So we not allow ourselves to ever get arrogant, to always learn, to always grow, always expand, always trying new things. One of the things, and this is not really directly answering a question, but I want to share it because it's one of the best pieces of advice I ever got in my real estate career. So when I first got in the business, because I was 23 years old, college dropout, I had like W-2 jobs, but never been in business. And I was like, okay, like I needed the right mentor. I had no money to go hire a coach or anything like that. So I went and found the biggest badass that I possibly could in the industry. Who ran and operated one of the top teams in the country at that time, been in the business for multiple decades at that point in time, but he also owned the brokerage, right? So I was able to go work at his brokerage, get that mentorship by him. And this is a dude that crushed it during, 20% interest rates, crushed it during the dot-com bubble, 9/11, right? Like, this is a dude that had a proven track record. But he said to me, he goes like, look, Josh, if you get damn good at acquiring and servicing traditional buyers and sellers, then you get damn good at acquiring and servicing investors. Then you get damn good at acquiring and servicing distress. That's going to be like, pre-foreclosure, short sales, foreclosures. No matter what's going on with the economy, what's going on in the market, one of those is always going to be strong. But then he's like, then you got to get good at reading markets and being able to know when to pivot, and so throughout my career, it's been a big mix of all of those different things. One of the reasons why, I was able to crush it and honestly do like my best net profit years where I felt like I was just printing money was during the great financial crisis, worst housing market, in the recorded history. I got on 35 different banks, outsourced managers, got on a bunch of different hedge funds. I had, listing inventory of 400 units at any given time with a team of like 6, right. But the reason why I was able to pivot to those is because I was reading the market. So I would have people that would come to me in 2008 and be like, oh man, I'm having to get out of the industry. Nobody saw this coming. I'm like, how did you not see this coming? What I didn't realize at that point in time is I didn't realize that others weren't tracking the markets, right? I had a great mentor that taught me how to track markets, taught me inventory rates, taught me how to pivot. Okay, if this inventory rate's at this is what this means, right? This is how to start adapting and pivoting. So before the market fell off a cliff, like I was already extremely well versed in processing short sales, right? I was already extremely versed in REOs and developing relationships with Fannie Mae and a lot of these big banks, before the thing melted down, right? Just like over the last few years with my coaching clients, I've been teaching them short sales again. I've been giving them all the asset manager REO foreclosure list to get into with Fannie Mae and Freddie. And some people like 2 years ago, like, why the hell are you teaching me this stuff? I'm like, look, you need to be well-rounded. There's going to be number one, those things always exist. There's always distressed assets, no matter what. It might be lesser than, during market corrections. But there's going to be time in your career where it's going to come, and just understanding that, okay, if I want to have a long career, I'm going to experience buyer's markets, seller's markets, neutral markets, booms, busts. I always look at this as it's my job I look at it as a science experiment. So I look at, okay, the residential real estate in my area is my product. That is the constant that doesn't change. The variable that's always changing, not always, but will change, is again, who's buying, who's selling, why they're buying, why they're selling, where they're coming from, where they're going. Mm-hmm. My job is to know my product, know my market, know my area, move this product. Then I got to be able to read the variable and how the variable is changing and change my messaging, change my targeting based on how that variable is changing. I'm telling you guys, if you learn to do that, you will crush it in all markets.
Yeah, that's great tactical stuff right there, bro. Great stuff. Let me write that down. Cool. One thing that you touched on, I would love to see if you could elaborate, Coach, is it's probably one of the biggest shortcomings that I'm noticing, and I would love to get your feedback to see if you notice it too with agents, is like in this information age where like there's so much information, they feel like they can just chat GPT coaching or mentorship or like get all the answers without having that tangible mentor in place that can identify that 20%, that salt that they're missing that you're talking about. How important is it, even for you, like continuous growth education, to have a coach, a train, a mentor, somebody that can identify that for you, even in your business now?
Yeah, so I have a coach in every aspect of my life that's important to me. So I have a mindset coach because my mind is a freaking mess. Right. So I got a coach that keeps that together, and that's going to impact business and family and overall life. I have a health and fitness coach. I have multiple coaches in business and in real estate for different things. And I will say that few powers of a coach is if you have the right coach. Look, I've exhausted more money than anybody I've ever met in this industry on coaches, and some of those have been good. The vast majority have been bad. I don't want to blame the coach. I used to. It was my inability of identifying the right coach, right? Mm-hmm. They might have been the right coach for somebody, but they weren't the right coach for me at that time. Because what I found is nobody's amazing at all things. Like you got some that are pretty well-rounded, that are pretty good. And I'd like to, put myself in that bucket. Just from my own experience, because I've had to do this at such a high level. I'm not coming from a place of theory, but not all, and not like, okay, if somebody like just be, okay, here's an example. Somebody came to me and said, hey, Josh, I want to grow $1 million a year business through TikTok. Like, I don't know how to coach them on that. It's not something I've done. It's not, right. So the first thing is identifying, so here's my mastery framework. So like I said, I have to operate off framework. So this is my self-development, self-education framework, because maybe you need a coach, maybe you don't, right. But it's identifying, okay, what is the current biggest obstacle that I am facing, that if I overcome this obstacle, get this dialed in, it will take my business and or life to the next level. So I'm going to identify that. Then I'm going to identify, so every element of my self-development. So I'm hiring coaches, whether I'm on podcasts, whether I'm on webinars, whether I'm reading books, whether I'm attending conferences, conversations, everything that I'm doing with my self-development is laser focused on just solving that one problem. Because what I find for most is they exhaust their self-development time is no better used than if they're binging Love Island on Hulu or some shit. Yeah, right. They just waste this time. Yeah, right. It's just in case versus just in time. Like just in case is me studying all these things that may or may never apply to me. Just in time is, okay, here's this problem that I'm experiencing that I need to solve. If I solve this, it will take my life and my business to the next level. So I'm going to allocate all my self-development time to solving that thing. And then boom, once I've got that solved, I take my business to the next level. Guess what? Now you're going to have another problem. So many people will be like, oh, Josh, I can't wait to build a team. I'm not going to have these problems. I'm like, yeah, you're going to have more problems. The more success you create, the bigger the problems you're going to have. And like Jim Rohn's famous quote is, don't wish for less problems, wish to become a better problem solver. So that's the first thing that I'd say there. And then from there, not only do coaches, it's allow me to, hack the learning curve, right? Because I don't want to figure anything out. Time is the most precious resource that we have. Like I can lose money and make more money. I cannot get time back. Mm-hmm. So to me, I would rather go to somebody that spent, okay, who did I learn copywriting from? Dan Kennedy. Yeah, right. Okay, he spent decades of his life studying this thing. Okay, I can go learn in hours that took him decades, so it can shorten that learning curve. Right. And buy me back more time and ensure that I'm doing it in the right way. The other thing is they can see blind spots that we can't see. I can't tell you how many times I go to my coaches. I'm like, hey, I've got this problem. Then I'm looking to solve the wrong thing, but it's like having that. Like, okay, I look at this in our life and our business and whatever is where I'm not a sports fan, so forgive me if this analogy is wrong or off, but it's like, okay, we're the quarterback. Yeah, right. And we're assessing all the players in the field, right. We think we're clear, and then all of a sudden some linebacker blindsides us. Yeah, mm-hmm. Right. I want that trusted professional up in the skybox that can see all the players in the field, see the blind spots I can't see, and that's where I find, coaches to become really powerful. Whether it's a coach, whether it's a mentor, whether it's, look, I mean, some of the most knowledge I've got is just from, learning, getting in close with and mastermind with other top producers. Yeah. Right. So it's not always one of these things where people got to go fork out. Like for me, I've always hated I got to go spend thousands of dollars a month on a coach. Yeah, right. Because what I found is when most people need a coach, like really need it, they can't afford it. And then when they can afford it, they don't really need it. So everything and I'm not trying to make this a promo for my coaching. Everything I've always tried to do is to make it extremely, extremely affordable, though, where anybody can afford it, to remove that thing. But but I don't want anybody to feel like, I get a lot of people are struggling right now. A lot of people are just struggling to pay their bills. They cannot afford a coach. Okay, you don't always need a coach. Yeah, right. Like you could go join with these, two, Shahnaz and Joseph at EXP and get free coaching from them. Yeah, right. You can go, make good friends with somebody in the business. Right. And sometimes when you're reaching out for a mentor, so one of my mentors, an example, his last company they sold for $792 million. Super successful guy. This guy makes like $36,000 an hour, 24/7. Yeah, right. Like his time's extremely valuable. So I'm like, okay, I want to develop a relationship with this guy. How do I get in with him? So I was trying to get him on the podcast, getting no shut down. I don't have a big enough podcast. It was so, but his book, Nothing to Lose, Everything to Gain, helped me through the first time that I lost everything. Like I just had that book on repeat, binged it over and over and over. And he helped me through that tough time. So huge fan of him, huge fan of his book. Well, then he was coming out with a second book, Rock Bottom to Rock Star, and he started pre-selling it before it officially launched. So I went out there and pre-ordered hundreds of his books before I even got him on the podcast. So then I reached out to his PR team. I'm like, hey, I purchased hundreds of his books. I'd love to have him on the podcast. And then from there, we'll run a contest where anybody that buys his first book and then sends me the receipt, I'm going to send them a free copy of this book, but I'm also going to send them a free GSD Mode, Get Shit Done Mode podcast shirt. So I spent like 20 grand, but it supported him. So I got him to come on the podcast, right. And then that led into a friendship and led into a mentorship. I had somebody else, one of the top producing, I think at her peak running a team. Now she's, at EXP running a big downline. But at the time she was like number 2 in the country, as far as team leaders on the Wall Street Journalist. And I wanted to develop a relationship with her, right? So I saw online, and I'm not saying everybody's got to do this, but everybody can do this in a different way. So I saw on Facebook, she's like, hey, I need a good WordPress developer. Does anybody have, good WordPress developer recommendation? So I reached out to her. I'm like, yeah, well, I know a lot of good WordPress developers, I know a lot of great developers. Like, what are you looking for? So she told me what she was building. What she didn't know is I had WordPress developers on staff on salary for my own business. Right. So I had all my developers stop everything they're doing. I'm like, in 24 hours, we're going to have this delivered to this lady, have it performing amazing, give her what she wants, not charge her for it. So when I was like, oh, just give me a couple days, I'll come back to you with the best contacts. But instead I came back with a delivered product, cost me a couple grand. But now, that lady, we're like best friends. She's on my speed dial. Anything I ever need, any checklist, SOP, anything. Yeah, right. She's allowed me to fly out and spend, come to her house with her husband, spend weeks at her office, shadowing her, learning from her, assessing my business. So maybe you need a mentor that's super busy. Okay, well, how can you donate your time for them? How can you help them? There's always ways, like thinking of how do I go after a great mentor? How would you go after the most important client that you want to go after? Yeah, right. There's always ways to get mentors and get that help if you can't afford to go pay them for their time.
So good. Yeah. I love that strategy of like just investing into them before you asking for anything back in return,
Yeah.
So powerful. Shahnaz, did you have I have one question that I'll ask here, Joshua, but Shahnaz, I didn't know if you had something in the pipe.
What Josh said, it's like you need a mentor. And being an entrepreneur for 7 years, that's one thing I really realized. Like later on, I was like, no, it really matters who you surround yourself with. When I start Josh coaching, I was targeting 12 different leads source. And we had a call because I was just so lost with Josh one-on-one. And Josh told me, he's like, look back 2 years, where did your leads come from? And I looked back and it was only 2 sources I got leads from. And it really kind of like opened up your mind. It's like, because when you're an entrepreneur, you're constantly like just looking, going, and you're just constantly moving and you never have time to reflect back and look. And it was amazing what Josh, told me. And I was like, okay, I just have to. And after 2 months, Josh joined EXP. And it was just amazing. Like, everything just, yeah.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Shahnaz. I've been keen to that too. Seldomly do the shiny objects actually contribute, right, Josh?
Yeah, and I would say this, and I am glad they brought that up, Shahnaz, because that reminds me of another point of look, less is more. Meaning that so many people today are like, well, I understand I got to be doing more things. Markets change, businesses change. So next thing you know, they're trying 10 different things, doing all half-ass, and input equals output, right? So when I say less is more, I'd rather you focus on less activities, identify 1, 2, 3 things, truly master those, be extremely consistent with those, do more of those. One of my good friends who has about 1,000 units a year, #1 team leader in the state of Michigan, to do 1,000 units, they only do 3 things: open houses, Zillow, past clients, right? Not saying that you got to do those 3 things. Yeah. Right. But so many people think they got to do all these different things. And to your point there, Joseph, especially in this market, this is a market of it's back to the basics, back to the fundamentals. Not saying that AI isn't important. I'm leveraging AI as much as anybody that I know. But with AI, I'm not using AI to add new things to my plate. I'm utilizing it to leverage, okay, what's already proven to work? How can I plug in AI so I can do it more effectively, more efficiently, do more of it, deepen the human connection? So I'm not doing it to create more work for me. I'm doing it to allow me to accelerate what's already proven to work and to scale that up.
So good. Yeah, there's some great truths in there. Very actionable steps. I wrote it down, right? Less is more, back to the basics. Coach, you talked about, treating your business like a business. People that don't track their numbers, then you're really not paying attention to your business, right? You're winging it, like you talked about. So some great fundamentals in there, man. Let's throw some fire in the chat. If you guys have any final comments in there, feel free to put them in now. But just to wrap this up, Coach, I just want to thank you for hitting us with the truth, man. I personally appreciate that, and it's so refreshing to hear somebody speak like life and truth into us instead of the fluff and the BS and the nonsense that really doesn't really move the needle forward. So guys, as you guys are listening, right, at some point in your business, in life, you guys are going to hit what we talked about, hitting walls, right? You guys are going to hit a wall, right? It happens. It's happened to all of us. It's happened to Coach. Certainly happened to myself. Shahnaz probably has her own testimony. But one of the biggest differences is the people who stay stuck and the people that break through. We want you guys to break through, right? You deserve that. Like Joshua had mentioned, I believe God has a very specific calling in all of our lives for us to fulfill. And if you don't know what that is, maybe it's that bird's eye view that you need. Maybe it is that coaching, that environment, to have somebody tap into you and being around the right people. And now is the time, right? So that's why coaching exists, right? That's why collaboration does matter. So you don't have to do this by yourselves, right? Lone wolves, lone operators. I'm telling you guys, it's a tough road ahead. So get around some leaders that are going to challenge you, like Coach, like Shahnaz, that are going to sharpen you. So my invitation to you guys before I hand it over to Coach is, if this is speaking to you, if you feel fatigued, you hit a wall, right? Or you're just simply searching for next level, then these are the conversations that we love to have in our environment. So we want to invite you guys to partner with us, right? We want to partner with people that need that help and create an ecosystem here of opportunity, of success. So if you're ready for that, simply drop, I don't care what platform you're on, just drop an emoji, right? Just drop GSD in the chat, and our team will reach out and we'll have a one-on-one consultation with you guys just to be able to pinpoint what's next for you and how we can help. Coach, I'll give you the last minute here to round us out. But I want to thank you on behalf of Dreamchasers, everybody that's paying attention to this online right now, for sharing your knowledge with us. We don't take it lightly, and we appreciate you, sir.
Yeah, no, it means a lot, man. So I got 2 last things that I'll share here. I was it's a blessing and a curse. But I look at it as a blessing. So I got in the industry in 2005. There was no smartphones. There was no social media. We didn't have DocuSign. We didn't have scanners, right? But the blessing of that is that the world wasn't so noisy. So I was forced to, and I quickly realized that I want to be $1 million a year GCI producing agent. So I was forced to go jump on airplanes if I wanted information, shadow people, because again, there's no podcast, there's no YouTube, there's none of this stuff out there. And what I quit, like when I first got in the industry, I honestly thought, and I put these super successful people on pedestals, because here I am, college dropout, never made more than $10 an hour in my life, like total loser, or at least felt like a total loser. But I put these people that were creating big success in this industry on these pedestals. I honestly thought that they had something I didn't, like they had like some special genetic code. But the blessing of having to go jump on airplanes and shadow them in person was very quickly I realized that that's not the case. These are human beings just like us. And I'm not saying they're not, amazing people, but what I quickly realized is, look, they have nothing on you. They have nothing on me. We're all human beings. We all put our pants on the same way, one leg at a time. Everybody's shit stinks. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's special. But what I quickly realized is these are just people that were willing to push through the shitstorms, because life is a pressure test. Business is a pressure test. And I look at this as, okay, like we're all pieces of coal. Now, pressure when applied to coal does one or two things. The piece of coal does one or two things. It either crumbles or it handles that pressure well and becomes diamonds. Right. So I just committed to, and I just saw these top producers that, look, the pressure exists no matter what. Like they hit those walls. They had to go through hell and back. They had to go through their shitstorms. These were just human beings that never gave up. They learned from those experiences, and they just mastered their craft. Mastered their craft. Were extremely consistent. They weren't even doing anything special. Back then they were doing open house, calling Fizbos, they're doing all the same crap. They're just doing it more consistently, master them. They're more intentional. So I want to share that point, because if you're anything like me, thinking that there's something wrong, like I thought there was something wrong with me. And then I realized that there wasn't anything wrong with me. Right. I just had the wrong mental framework, the wrong mindset, the wrong approach to this. The second thing of if you are interested in partnering with this EXP, what I love about this model is we rolled out co-sponsorship not too long ago. Well, if you are interested, you have the ability now to not just join EXP and get amazing access to all their support training tools, which is hands down the best brokerage I've ever seen in my 20 years of doing this. But you also now have the ability of getting mentored and partnering with Shahnaz, with Joseph, and co-sponsoring with myself, where you get all of their support access, plus you get all my coaching, training, mentorship, all for free to you as well. So if that's something you guys have interest in, like Joseph said, just reach out, and we're here to support you guys any way we can.
Top notch. All right. Thank you, Coach, so much again for your time and your wisdom. Truly appreciate you. We're going to invite you back, sir. We'd love to have you come back out, set something up special for this audience and everybody that is looking forward to collaborating with us within the future. So thank you so much for your time, sir.
Yep. Thank you. It's been an honor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right, good family. Well, we wrapped up top of the hour, brought you an hour of fire, flame. I know you guys are refined. Let's go out there. Let's have an amazing day. Crush it. Masterclass is coming back next Tuesday. Same time, same channel. You guys stay blessed, stay true out there, and you guys have an amazing day.